afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. At the very outset, I would like to thank Miranda House and TED Talk for giving me this platform to share my experiences as a blind person growing up in a predominantly sighted society, and hopefully reshape your understanding of what it means to be disabled in an ableist world. So I begin. If I give you a paper scribed in Braille, would you be able to read it? Perhaps not. Would you then be called disabled? Definitely not. Then why are blind people who cannot read print and use Braille instead labeled as disabled? Why are those who adopt alternative ways of doing the same thing branded as deviant and abnormal? Can we not embrace alternative modes of being and living as a manifestation of human diversity and celebrate it as such? Today I invite you to reflect on these questions through the story of my life and revisit your understanding of disability. The very mention of the term disability evokes in the non-disabled imagination countless images of the human body gone wrong. Disability, in fact, is used in common parlance to denote a bodily deficit that incapacitates the individual. The tendency of society at large is to medicalize the phenomena and trace the genesis of disability to an individual's body. But the real question is, should we understand the experience of disablement exclusively in terms of the human body? Let us ponder on this question by reflecting on the example of wheelchair users. When a wheelchair user is confronted with a flight of steps, they are unable to ascend or descend the flight of steps. In a sense, they are rendered disabled. But when the very same wheelchair users are provided with the facility of a ramp or an elevator, they are able to negotiate the different floors of the building with consummate ease. In a sense, they cease to be disabled. If this is the case, then should we trace the genesis of disability to the human body? Or does disability have something to do with a hostile, disabled, unfriendly social environment that pays little attention to the specific needs of disabled people? The tendency to medicalize the phenomena is, in fact, for me, an attempt to exonerate society from any form of culpability in shaping the experience of disability. The crux of the matter remains that it is society that produces and shapes the experience of disablement. As a blind person growing up in a predominantly sighted society, I have experienced this firsthand. Elders talking about me in hushed voices, referring to me as Bechara Bacha, the poor boy, and wondering, ye is dunya mein ye kya kar sakega? What will this poor boy be able to do in this world? Others evoke the doctrine of karma to describe the state of my eyesight in terms of a punishment that I was given for the sins that I might have committed in the previous birth. I was also referred constantly as a monster, Rakshas. An unsound body hosts an unsound mind. This was a refrain that I was constantly made to hear, and it constantly pierced my ears. All these experiences were indeed dehumanizing. They played havoc with my psychology and deflated my sense of self-esteem. So much so that as a 6-year-old boy with very poor eyesight, I, before going to the doctor, memorized the entire alphabet chart that is used to check one's eyesight. I did this because I was very scared of being branded a person with low vision. Blindness for me had become a form of social oppression. It had become a stigma that grew as I grew up, breeding into prejudice, contempt, and discrimination. After completing my schooling, I wanted to seek admission in economics honors, but the college authorities did not allow me to do so. They said that because of my lack of sight, I will not be able to do the mathematics or statistics that is required to do this course. I was literally pushed into the literature class. Not that I today regret having done an English honors, but what I really resented was the fact that decisions about my life and future were always taken by others, and my voice was never heard. Everything about me was done without me. Perhaps it was with this realization that I began my journey through the looking glass. I began to work very hard at my studies, and the results were there for everybody to see. I topped my English honors graduation in the university. I then came to JNU for my master's, where once again I secured the highest FGPA in my batch. I went on to secure a job in a college in Delhi University and complete my MPhil and PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru University. He has an amazing sixth sense, my friends often commented, and I felt very tempted to ask them, kindly name what my fifth sense is first before you can talk about my sixth sense. My success in academics had very little to do with sixth sense or compensatory powers. It was all a product of hard work, perseverance, and practice. Apart from my academics, I got involved in setting up the enabling unit at my college. My intention was to create a level playing field for PWD students and provide them with an inclusive educational experience. But more importantly, I established the Indian Disability Studies Collective, the IDSC, and the Center for Disability Research and Training, CDRT. Both institutions have played a crucial part in promoting disability studies within the Indian academia. This monster of a boy was, after all, not a cruel being. Even the government of India recognized the services of this poor boy by bestowing upon him the National Award for Empowering Persons with Disability in 2022. Nevertheless, the words, what will this poor boy do in this world, continues to resonate in my ears and mind. It was my mother who broke the distorted social mirror in which I used to look and see myself. The very next morning, after I had lost my eyesight completely, she, as usual, woke me up at 7 in the morning and asked me to fetch the vegetables, which I had always done in the past. I hesitated and went promptly back to sleep, hoping that somebody else would do the job. But when I woke up 3.5 hours later, to my astonishment, there was no breakfast for me. In fact, nobody in the house had had their breakfast. How can cooking be done if there is no veggies at home, said my mother. And it's your responsibility to fetch the veggies. If you don't bring it, there will be no cooking today. I shook my head, picked up the vegetable bags, and went to the market. This small incident made me realize that there was no free lunches in life, that there were no concessions for me. Your only disability, my mother told me, is that you are unable to see your ability. As I grew up and went through the journey of the life, I realized that I was much more than just my eyes. After all, I was normal and human as everybody else. Therefore, I could not commit the sacrilege of looking at myself reductively as the entire society did. After all, I was human as any other human being, and I enjoyed the right to be happy, to have proper education, to seek adequate employment, and get married and have children, like any one of you. And it is this message that I try to propagate through the various platforms across the country, in the hope that I will be able to one day play my little part in creating a more inclusive and egalitarian society. I am doing my little bit to promote the cause. What about you? What are you doing? Let us join hands and work towards eradicating all forms of social labels and make the world we jointly inhabit a better place to live. After all, labels are for jars, not for people. Thank you.